America Ferrera. So this movie was real important to me because I felt kind of guilty that I really didn't know the history of Cesar Chavez. And you know, for me, I've heard about him. I know it was the street, but I felt like I'm pretty much like a lot of Americans where they really don't know the history of this important person. So how important do you think that this movie will be as far as influencing people that don't have that knowledge on?
Well, you're not alone. I mean, I was shocked to learn how many Americans had never heard of Cesar Chavez. And I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and this whole movement happened in California. So it's a big part of our history growing up. And I just assumed this is an American icon the way Martin Luther King was an American icon and led a social justice movement, the way Bobby Kennedy was an icon. And again, shocking to come to learn that, you know, not a lot of Americans knew who he was. So it is really a great opportunity for us to get to have this American hero have his due and have his story told. And so it was a real honor to get to be a part of it.
Your character is real central, playing the wife, Miss Helen Chavez, because you see that behind all of these social activists and heroes that we have here in our history, that there's always this family that's going through it with them that you may not, you know, learn about. Mm-hmm. But I think you did a good job of illustrating. What did you learn from playing that role about Cesar Chavez that you didn't know from your own upbringing here?
Yeah, well, I think the most interesting things to learn about were the personal sacrifices, you know, to learn what his children went through, you know, and what they sacrificed. And also, particularly for me, learning about Helen and the role that she played, not just as the woman who raised the kids and made the money and fed the family and, you know, was his partner, but she was an activist, and she was deeply devoted to this cause. It was very personal to her. She grew up working on the fields from the time she was 7 years old. So this was personal to her, and she was a part of forming the union. She ran the credit union. She was on the front lines protesting and pamphleting and getting arrested. And so it was just really wonderful to have her true involvement and all of the contributions she made be seen.
Right, right.
Caesar, you got a permit for this march?
It's not a march, Sheriff. It's a pilgrimage all the way to Sacramento. And our families are here just to say goodbye.
You hear that? They don't like working for a day's wage, but they will walk over 300 miles for free. Even pilgrims ain't allowed in the street without a permit.
Well, fine, we'll use the sidewalk. It's open to the public.
You know, another thing that's surprising is, you know, one of the great things that Cesar Chavez did with the AFW is that he took on the Filipinos' cause and marched for them also. And you think about like all the conflict that's been, you know, reported about black and brown relationships and stuff here. You like, well, you know, why wasn't there that similar, you know, justice, similar focus cause to bring us together instead of it being this fission between those two communities, especially here in LA, you know, early 80s and 90s.
Well, Cesar Chavez was deeply inspired by Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement, and he considered they corresponded with one another, and they considered each other's brothers in the same fight, because whether you're a farm worker or, you know, a young black man in the segregated South, or whether, you know, you're an Asian American facing injustice or a Filipino American, it's all the same fight. It's the fight for social justice, and that's the hope that this story ultimately be a universal message, that what Chavez was saying was not, you know, our duty is to Mexican farmers. It was our duty is to our fellow brother and sister, regardless of the color of the skin.
Wow. Great story, great performance. Thank you for bringing this story to life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.